welcome also from my side. Thanks for being here. It's a great crowd. It's a huge crowd. It's a privilege to be here. Let me introduce very quickly our panelists. We have kind of not only iconic institutions in our industry with us, Lufthansa Cargo, DHL Express, CMA, Air Cargo, but also, at least to my feeling, thought leaders, individuals in this industry. So let me welcome, ladies first, Dorothea from Boxberg, CEO of Lufthansa Cargo. And then Olivier Casanova, CEO of the kind of young entrant into our industry, CMA, CGM Air Cargo. Last but not least, Michiel Greven, the EVP and Head of Sales for DHL Express globally.
Thank you.
Please take a seat. So, while we have heard the very interesting, albeit a bit gloomy outlook on kind of how the industry overall is going, I think equally interesting and maybe kind of for all of us even more of a kind of question mark is what happens within the industry, kind of the industry structure, the kind of vertical structure of an industry that after the Second World War was kind of very fragmented, where kind of the door-to-door air freight journey was kind of handled by several parties, from forwarders to ground handlers to customs agents to cargo airlines. And then a few decades later, at least on the premium fast speed element, the integrator stepped in and integrated that all. And then 2 decades later, again, kind of a new breed emerged, which was the e-commerce giants, Amazon, Alibaba, also seemingly integrating a bit more of the services that were delivered by different companies before. Now, in the last few years, we have also seen new entrants in air cargo. And what we want to explore today is basically, what does that mean? Is it a new entry of integrators in a different space? Or are we totally wrong about that? So that's kind of the topic of today. I'm sure everyone kind of is eager to hear. And let me start with a bit of a quick fire. Given there's so much uncertainty, let me ask a simple question. What are your customers? Dorothea.
Well, in our world, of course, the shipper is the end customer, but we contract with forwarders and so consider them as our customers.
Yes, I agree with that. So our prime customers are freight forwarders, but we also work with e-commerce players, mail players, and integrators, of course.
Michiel?
Yeah, I would say I'm in a pretty nice position. Everyone basically could be our customer. You receiving packages when you ordered something online. But you know, in this community, of course, the airlines could be customers sending documents or spare parts, but obviously also the freight forwarders that use express when it is absolutely necessary. So it's a whole variety of customers.
Let me pick on that a bit more. When we talk about read a lot about integrated logistics, is that rather a term that kind of we use to describe our industries? What are your customers actually asking your sales force for? Are they asking for integrated logistics?
No, actually, I would not say that any customer would say we would like integrated logistics. What customers are asking for is reliability, is consistency, is speed, and that's what customers are looking for. But you know, I think in our industry, in the express industry, I mean, why are we on Earth? We are on Earth to deliver goods from A to B in a very fast way. And you know, the more integrated you are, the better it is to deliver reliability and consistency, and you can control your own, you know, your own flow as well as you can. So,
and we will get into that a bit more, but maybe to you both. Did kind of the definition of what your customer is change over the last 2 years? Did you kind of have new archetypes of customers that kind of might before not have shipped with you?
Well, e-commerce customers are newer on the block, so that has of course grown considerably also as a segment. But otherwise I would say customers have stayed customers.
I think maybe I should present, let's say, CMA CGM Air Cargo, because we're a newcomer, so there are lots of questions. So CMA CGM Air Cargo was launched in March 2021. And the idea was to launch a new French airline dedicated to air cargo transportation with a modern fleet of freighters only. And it was, let's say, a strategic, an important step in the implementation of the strategic vision of our chairman, Rodolphe Saadé, to basically expand the product and the service offering that we are providing to our customers. The feeling is that the more supply chains are becoming complex, the more they require people who understand every link of the supply chain and how they interconnect in order to provide ultimately the best solution and the best service. So we had already activities spanning, of course, shipping, logistics, and we felt that branching into air cargo transportation would complement, let's say, our product offering and enable us to provide, let's say, more adequate solutions to our customers. So the customers remain the freight forwarders, but we see also that the frontiers are shifting because in the world we're living is very complex, because there are a lot of disruptions to well-oiled supply chains. In fact, we think that there is more and more need for integration of the different players with each other, so working hand in hand. And so in our case, for example, we have had a number of occasions, even in our recent life, where we have worked in a tripartite sort of way with the freight forwarders, but also with the shipper, when they are faced with, again, a disruption, in order to devise exactly the solution that meets their needs. And for 2-3 months, we helped, for example, a freight forwarder, a well-known freight forwarder, to address the needs of a German car manufacturer to provide spare parts or automotive parts to the US, because the supply chain had been disrupted by the Ukraine crisis. So here we were really 3 parties around the table to try to find the best solution.
Got it.
Yeah, in terms of customers, I would say in the last 2 years, the whole logistics, the supply chain management has been much more complex and challenging. And the more challenging it becomes, the more the need for express delivery. So we have seen not so much like a complete new set of customers, but we saw the customers expanding in the shipment profile. So they start to come to us with much heavier weight shipping profiles, and that triggered interest. So now more and more also logistics service providers, freight forwarders, are coming to us when really the need is there. So that's what we have seen.
And do you think that will sustain when kind of what we have seen, air cargo yields will drop? Because last week I read the price parity of express and air cargo went up from 30 kilo shipments to 70 on the peak of air cargo yields.
No, interesting there is that, so we saw this happening, let's say 1.5 years ago, and then we thought, okay, we can make our own assumptions, but why don't we ask our customers? Why don't we ask all these customers that came on board with a heavier shipment profile? So we interviewed, like in-depth interviewed 350 customers globally, and we asked them those questions. What do you think will happen? Basically, 2/3 of the customers would say, we think we will stay with you or even increase with this heavier weight profile, because we have seen in your integrated logistics that it is really working, as one flow, one way of working, transparency in terms of information, and also the price was stable, so we like that, so we want to continue with you. And 1/3 said, we possibly will go back to, let's say, the general cargo kind of market. So that was what has happened.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So Dorothea, if kind of customers ask you, how do I get a similar level of reliability and quality as I might get from a fully integrated logistics, you also integrate with your suppliers, forwarders. How would you respond?
Well, I think it very much depends on their integrator, which in our case often is the forwarder. And so it really depends on the quality of the integration of the forwarder to all the different parties. And I mean, thinking of a shipment coming from somewhere in China, going to somewhere to Southern Europe, it's these famous 13 or 15 handshakes where it's transferred to the next party. And so you need to have all the data, you need to have reliable service, and you need to be able to know what you can promise to your customer. And so I fully agree. I mean, customers are looking for a timely service, a reliable service, and something they don't need to bother about. Yeah, so this whole question of can I spend my time on something else while this is working? And so we, of course, want to be an integral part of that, and that is why we connect with our partners digitally, why we make information available, why we work on high quality, so to be a good partner in that.
So it sounds like, in your opinion, this kind of necessary integration and flow of data doesn't necessarily need the integrated kind of assets that maybe an express player needs for premium shipping. Now, Olivier, your company seems to be, as a group, playing kind of somewhere in the middle, and at least kind of some in the audience might have the question, are you kind of believing in a virtual integration of the different players in the value chain, or do you believe in a physical integration more like DHL would do?
Well, you know that in the shipping world, in fact, freight forwarders of the world, large and small, represent more than 50% of our revenue on the shipping side. So they are a very important and very valued part of our customer base. I think in air freight, it's a different business. It works differently than shipping, and we certainly see that the value added by freight forwarders is essential. And they are, providing services that we as an airline cannot provide in terms of, export documentation, customs clearance, packing, etc., etc. So all of these, let's say, services need to be provided by the freight forwarders. But what we see is clearly that the frontiers are shifting, that the world is becoming more complex, and we are finding different solutions. So we are seeing a lot more freight forwarders now with the COVID crisis. Contracting for capacity for long terms, sometimes a couple of months, sometimes even a year or two, and securing, let's say, access to the capacity. They're not becoming an airline, so to speak, but they are certainly changing the relationship, and they become capacity provider. And sometimes, if they don't fill the plane, they are looking for let's say a different solution. So we see certainly the frontiers are shifting, and at the end of the day, what's important is to find the right solution for the end customer. So we certainly want to work hand in hand with the freight forwarders, but we think that we have different ways of playing that role.
And if we now play forward a bit, kind of an expected yield decline, where at least arguably some of the peak yields have kind of driven behavior on long-term charters, on kind of heavier blocked space risk positions that shippers, forwarders and others take. Will we see a return to the mean, Dorothea?
Well, I think I've said that a few times already, and it's not always been popular, but I think that it's really a different kind of business to be the investor into long-haul aircraft, like huge investments, and operating them in a profitable way. In my world, is really a different business than doing forwarding. And I think the exception is probably DHL, FedEx, UPS. So where you have got a freight forwarding arm and an express arm, well, of course, you will continue to operate aircraft, yeah. But in your DNA, you've been working with these aircraft for a long time. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot more complicated. I think the airline people in the room would probably agree to make that profitable throughout the cycle, to not just have nice returns in boom times, but we all know it's an up and down, and the downs come soon. And so working through the cycle, I think, is the tricky part of this business. Mm-hmm. And it requires a lot of knowledge, systems, investments, and I don't think that all the forwarders that are now having their long-term 1 year, 2 year engagements will stay to that. I mean, we know all the discussions we have. As soon as for a hard block, rates go a little bit below that in the market, like, ooh, I don't want to pay that. Well, but if you've got a charter, then you will. So I don't think that is a persistent business model.
I mean, it seems though that I totally agree with Dorothea, but it seems that the world is not going to go back to, let's say, 2018, 2019 just now. In fact, we know that geopolitical situation is very complex. It's not necessarily going to find a resolution quickly. We can see that COVID is not behind us. In fact, people are talking about now a recurring disease coming back every year. So it seems that the disruption is still going to be there for some time. Maybe not everywhere, maybe not in all of the routes, but certainly it will remain very complex. And I think one thing that the shippers and the freight forwarders have certainly, one of the lessons they've taken from the crisis is that security of supply is very important. And maybe it's changed a little bit, let's say, the nature of the discussions that used to take place when capacity was abundant and there was no, let's say, issue to get on board. I think this maybe will have lasting effects. So it's not going to change completely the structure, but it's an evolution, I think.
Yeah. Understood. Michiel, maybe kind of a question coming to my mind while we have seen the outlook on air cargo going kind of down, at least on the yield side. We have seen kind of you and your peers rather raising the prices, although you have also had kind of a different philosophy right through the last years with kind of rather rate card type pricing. Kind of, wouldn't you expect that this kind of returns a few customer kind of back to the classical air freight industry?
Yes, what I said. Yeah, it could be that that some customers, when the rates of freight forwarders are going to be reduced significantly, some customers will move back. And other customers who think like, actually, it is so challenging nowadays. I'm actually willing to pay more, or maybe sometimes significantly more. But then at least I have the guarantee that my part or my crucial shipment, my time-sensitive shipment, will arrive. So, and that transparency, that reliability is absolutely vital, and we see that more and more. So, but. All in all, we are pretty comfortable, let's say, with the outlook in terms of both yields, but also in terms of volume. Yeah, of course, we will go up and down with the GDP a bit, but but
and can you elaborate?
Big drops.
Yeah, can you elaborate a little? Kind of in your business model, you also market some capacities in your air network, as ACS called kind of air cargo product, right?
Yeah, so that's indeed. So we have our own aircraft. We have short-term lease. We have longer-term lease. We use commercial uplift. We use charters. So we use it all. So that's why we can flex up and down. And if we have, like on an aircraft, we have 15% left, we can sell it through ACS, which is basically cargo, right? So then at least we always have the opportunity to have full aircraft. So this is how the model works. And if it's not necessary, then there's no ACS. Then it's also good because then there's just the time-definite customers that are filling the plane. So in all circumstances, we are somehow covered. And it's important for us, to make obviously good financial results.
In the last 2 years, did you ever have the temptation to increase that share of, because kind of other market entrants have considered air cargo to be the maybe most attractive business to go in?
I can say like the ACS percentage of, let's say, our capacity is like, I think pre-COVID was 6% and nowadays it's 7%. So it did not really change. So it's same number, more or less.
Olivier, what motivated your group to enter air cargo so forcefully?
Well, first, of course, we were answering, let's say, customers' needs. I mean, it was obvious. The decision was taken at the back end of 2020 on the face of the disruption that, we could see all in the aviation industry. And it was clear that COVID was not going to go away quickly, that the passenger traffic was going to be perturbed for a long period of time. And therefore, there was a strong need for more capacity, especially of pure freighters. And this is our business. So that's why we decided that it was the right time to implement that long-term vision, as I explained, to become a more comprehensive provider of services to our customers. We see that, in fact, as a way to also strengthen the relationship that we have with freight forwarders. The more solutions we can bring, the more flexible solutions we can bring, the more also we can help them work out the best solution for their customers. And so the next step, of course, is the alliance we have just announced with Air France, KLM, in May of this year. So it's a new, ambitious, let's say, venture. We are, I think, in some ways, some uncharted territories. But we're very excited, both Air France, KLM, and ourselves. We have, I think, a shared vision and ambition. And we think we're very complementary. So the idea, as I explained, is to bring together, in fact, the freighter fleet of both parties. They have 6 freighters, we have 6. So we'll start with 12. The ambition is to go up to 20 by 2026. And we will look to deploy those freighters, obviously, in a coordinated manner to provide the best, let's say, service, the best options for our customers. And, of course, to integrate, let's say, that freighter network together with the 160 long-haul passenger aircraft of Air France and KLM in order to provide even more connections. And I think in total, it could be up to 300 different, let's say, destinations. So a wide choice for our customers. The idea is that we will commercialize this capacity of freighters together with the belly capacity together with one single sales force, one single voice to the customer. And of course, each airline will remain responsible for its own operations, but commercially and from a network standpoint, we will work together. And we think that will bring a lot of benefit for our customers. Of course, expanded network, more destination, as I explained, but also better quality of service, more speed, clearly more non-stop flights, more rapid connections, and also better reliability, more let's say, repair options, and of course, a unified product offering. And we are looking also to leverage, let's say, the existing tools of Air France KLM, which will, let's say, enable us to provide, the required sort of ease of doing business and visibility, the tracking that our customers need. So we think that there are a lot of benefits for our customers from this innovative partnership, which we're looking to implement, hopefully, in the new year, next year.
Thanks for your look into the kind of construction of a new joint venture. Very interesting. Now, people might ask, CMA is also world's third largest container shipping line. Are we on a new path towards multimodal logistics? And what does that kind of, how does that play into, maybe briefly you, but also then want to understand from our other panelists what they see?
Well, I think, of course, we are responding to customer needs. So to the extent there are needs for sea plus air type solutions, of course, we are well placed to provide that. But I think a lot of, our customer, freight forwarder customer, are also able to offer this type of solutions. So, but I think at the end of the day, it seems to us that there are still 2 different, needs which are well identified. And if you need to, deliver something to the other side of the world in 24 hours, you don't have many options. So I think the world is still going to be relatively separate between, shipping and air freight.
That's a clear statement, especially as kind of people might think differently when they also see your competitors, MSC and Maersk, enter the space. Yeah.
But I think it's. I mean, I cannot talk, on behalf of our competitors. But I think it's about complementary services to provide a more, comprehensive, let's say, set of solutions for customers.
Dorothea, what's your perspective?
Well, I still think that our customers are on a good path, yeah? So the forwarders have the option to play across the networks of a number of airlines, and that's how they can really offer the best solutions that I can see for their customers. And, well, as you said, I think sea freight and air freight are quite distinct businesses, but of course forwarders also offer both. So if you want that integration, you can get it with a number of forwarders if you're interested. And but then this playing the networks, having a solution in case one carrier just can't offer the full solution, I think that's a big value added for for any end customers or any shipper. And I think that's why the forwarding business is still very attractive for shippers.
Michiel?
Yeah, I would say what you would say. So nothing to add in that respect.
And I remember you also have worked in a different division of the DPDHL group, where it's more about kind of integrated supply chains. You are now working as a family of divisions. Do you see any trend in the setup of supply chains that would kind of, led us to believe that in the industry structure that we have been discussing now, anything will change anytime soon?
Yeah, so I remember, for maybe the 50 plus people in the room, my first job was with Netloyd. And Netloyd was actually, I think, one of the pioneers, establishing like a one-stop shop for customers, whatever they were doing logistics-wide. I think it was not a big success because you cannot be good at everything. So you just need to be focused on something that you do really well, and then you need to make sure that you connect the dots, like Express with supply chain. Of course, it's totally different business models, different strategies, but somehow you need to make sure that you hook up and connect those items very well. I think, talking DHL Express, we connect the dots basically for our big customers. We have like a sales group who is focused on the 120 biggest customers that we have, and we also have that in Express. And this is where you develop solutions, global solutions for global partners or global customers. And this is where you can actually, find a good collaboration between the different business units. And yes, we're working as a family of divisions. Express is doing Express very well, and the others are focusing on them. But it's not that we are in the market to offer for all the customers like completely integrated solutions. It's simply too complex. It is too complex, and to do that on a global scale, it's not probably not possible.
And arguably also more expensive, at least kind of. There are voices out there that say in a perfect market, and we are now seeing that also in ocean freight, in air freight, markets work. That kind of, unless you have different service providers for different elements, you kind of might not get to the best cost and price level.
Correct, yeah, totally agree.
And maybe another thing that is just changing is, I think, that the air cargo industry is getting more professional. Yeah, so we heard it earlier today as well. So after we've made some profits, we also get some investments, and that of course helps. I think we've been chronically underinvested, and now investing finally into digitalization, data, transparency helps us to catch up a bit, or maybe all at some point, in comparison to the integrators. Because again, it's so important for customers to be reliable, to be timely, to offer an undisrupted service. And so I think that really makes a difference compared to, let's see where quality is, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. Yeah. So.
But that's actually a great pivot of the discussion. We have discussed about entrants into the industry coming in because it seems to be so profitable, at least it is right now, and it was in the last 2 years. But the cargo airlines themselves have not really consolidated much or kind of aggressively gone after venturing into other modes of logistics. So where have they invested? You were saying digital. I mean, some airlines obviously also have to cover weaker parts of airline groups and therefore cannot kind of invest indefinitely. But what are the key investment highlights?
Well, I think the major investment is always fleet in the end. And we still see that there are a lot of old freighters out there in the industry that need to be renewed over time because they're either so old or so costly in terms of fuel bills. So I think that is the one by far biggest and largest investment area for airlines. And then compared to that, digitalization doesn't cost quite so much, but still it's an investment that is needed and that's also taking place.
Yes, I think we clearly concur with that, and that's why, as a new entrant into this industry, we decided to go, with 777. We have 2 brand new, which we've just taken delivery of this year. We have 2 more coming in 24, and then of course we were the first airline, so to speak, to sign up for the A350. And I saw the Airbus stand in the lobby downstairs. But we're very pleased with this aircraft. We think that it's the next generation. It will provide significant improvement in fuel consumption and therefore CO2 emission. And I agree that there is a big sort of investment wall in front of the whole industry in order to renew the fleet and to improve, let's say, the carbon footprint. And that's clearly a big challenge for the industry, which will require significant capital.
Michiel, where do you invest?
No, it's aircraft, obviously, and information technology. I was smiling when you were talking about sustainability. We ordered actually 14 electrical planes, Alice. And so we are now in the pilot phase, and by 2025 we will have them operational. Obviously, short stretches, not with a lot of cargo availability, but it's a first step. So it's on the back of what you said on sustainability. It's quite a nice thing to invest in.
Dorothea, you said kind of cargo is becoming a bit more professional. We heard from all of you, investments are needed and are high. What does that mean for the future structure of the industry? Will only the bigger and stronger players survive?
Well, I think we still have an industry that has half of its capacity in belly holds. And so that would be then the whole debate on, will passenger airlines need to be big to survive? And I don't know whether that is true. But of course, you've got a scale advantage. I mean, that's always been there in the industry if you grow bigger. And of course, you've got a different scale for IT investments as well. So I think it's true both on the airline side and on the forwarder side that scale should give a benefit as you need to invest. And I think because you had this question, will prices also rise on the forwarding side, or will that be a consolidated industry? So today we don't see it's a consolidated industry. So in our case, it's the top 10 customers that make about 40% of our revenues. So there are many local heroes or regional heroes or forwarders where our footprint doesn't match theirs so well, yeah. But so there is a lot of competition, and still I think there will be some consolidation because it's just not feasible for everybody to do the full investment in a digital stack, also then involving customs authorities in many countries and all the work that you've probably done. So there is probably some argument to say scale matters.
Mm-hmm. I would agree to that. Scale does matter, especially in the last 2 years we have seen that, right? So capacity, was a bit scarce, and then scale does matter. And customers, they want global solutions. People might think that in terms of global trade, it's contracting, but it's not. It's actually expanding, and still today and next year, it will continue to expand. So customers need global solutions, and that's why you need to have capacity. So capacity does matter.
Providers, yeah.
So we learned quite a lot. Customers need global solutions, need kind of some sort of integration, but it doesn't mean that there's only one party that physically needs to integrate everything.
Yeah.
It can also be virtually integrated, and then through data investments it will be better integrated over time. What else drives kind of customers to ask for kind of more than just airport to airport transport? Is it kind of the sustainability trend? Is it other trends that might drive this further?
Yeah, so I might mention the B2B e-commerce trend. This is going to be the biggest thing. I mean, the quantities, the share will quadruple in let's say from now until 2026. B2B e-commerce will be the big thing, which means that where normally you have customers working with distributors or importers, so like mass transportation to countries where then in the country itself it will be distributed, that will, it will remain, but it will reduce over time significantly, which means that you have smaller shipments from manufacturing plants or distribution centers, regional ones in Europe or Far East or US, and then straight to the end customer. That is the big trend that will happen and is actually already happening, and this is what we see also.
Yeah, this is what we also call parcelization of trade, which at the end of the day obviously would help your business model, but is this something that you can imagine happening as well, Olivier?
I think we're already seeing that. In fact, there are a number of e-commerce players who have developed homegrown freight forwarders. And sometimes who are going to contract capacity for a long time. So in fact, they become almost the operator. They don't have pilots and they don't have an AOC, but effectively they are deciding where the plane is going. So in some ways, and we don't need to name some of the big players who are already far advanced along that track. So I agree that there is some. This will bring about some disruptions, but I still think that we're all not going to purchase everything from e-commerce players, so there's room for other players and for other modes of distribution. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not talking actually about. I can also talk about, let's say, B2C e-commerce players. I'm actually talking about our multinationals, all our customers. They are now changing their models, so not to sell via distributors and importers, but they sell straight online to their end customers. So that is what I'm talking about.
We're seeing that also in the logistics, in the contract logistics business, where we are, let's say, developing dual warehouses, which are addressing B2B and B2C directly as well. Yeah, absolutely.
But does that necessarily mean that kind of the shipment is a parcel? Because we also see a lot of B2B shipments being just a pallet that would travel the normal routes.
For sure, for sure, this will what you say, like parcelization, that is already happening, and it will only accelerate.
But another trend was the sustainability that you mentioned is of course a super big trend. Yeah, so I think it's like 1.5 years, 2 years now that the discussion has really taken off. And yes, maybe during COVID it was a little bit slowed down, but it is a huge discussion and it will have a huge impact on the industry. And so if we now think about the Fit for 55 packages that are just discussed by the EU right now, where you get SAF mandates and actually really fast growing SAF mandates, that will fundamentally change our industry. Yeah, so SAF is much more expensive than kerosene, and even kerosene is already very expensive. Yeah,
we've seen.
So as we've seen. And this whole question: how can we get it done in a good way? How can we use less CO2 in the industry? How can we become more efficient? And how do we find solutions that are commercially viable and that make, in the end, our industry, well, hopefully at some point, a green industry? That's a big question and a big change driver.
And that's actually, it has a good link also to the topic of this panel, integrated logistics, because the shippers are thinking about these emissions in their supply chain holistically, across modes, across kind of the different trade lanes or whatever. And therefore they kind of will try to focus on the elements where the emissions are kind of standing out the most. And that kind of, for the time being, is the air freight part. So what is the response? You mentioned a few things already, Michiel, Olivier.
I think for us, well, clearly SAF, seems to be, let's say, a big part of the solution, so to speak. And today the issue is that there is not enough SAF production, and it's a bit the chicken and the egg, typical situation where there's not enough demand because it's too expensive, but it's too expensive because there's not enough production, and the production cannot get financed because there's not enough demand. So, in fact, we need somehow to get out of this conundrum, and one way in which modestly we're trying to help that on the shipping side is we've just announced, in fact, our chairman announced a 1.5 billion fund to help develop, let's say, a decarbonation solution in the shipping industry, but not only shipping. I think aviation is also part of the mandate. And we've already taken a number of initiatives to help, for example, to co-invest with energy producer to develop pilot plants, for example, for new, biofuel, for example, for the marine industry. But I think the airline industry will probably have to also, let's say, get involved in helping to develop the right solutions. It's not just, I know the mandate today is with the let's say, jet fuel providers, but it's not just their problem. It's also, let's say, the industry's problem, and we need to find solutions together and probably work in a collaborative manner, differently than what we have worked, in the past, where there was just a provider of jet fuel and a purchaser. So I think some of these solutions will require us all to sit around the table and decide how we want to help develop the supply chain of SAF.
Yeah, so it's clear that the air stretch is, contributing the most to the CO2 pollution, right? So I think every logistics service provider is busy with electrification of the delivery fleet, so that's all going pretty strong. What I notice with customers is that everyone says, yeah, we need to do something, and we are willing to make commitments and willing to invest, but no one actually knows how. Yeah, so yes, there's discussions on SAF, but when you deal with customers, yeah, what does it mean? You talk to logistics managers, but they cannot make any commitments. So this is what I find. Customers, they feel that they need to do something, but they don't know what and they don't know how. So investments in SAF is a first very good step, but then you need to make sure that your customers actually partner with you.
Yeah.
So I would say as DHL, we stuck our neck out. We bought 800 million liters of SAF, 800 million. So now we are in discussions with customers, how to partner. I think so far we have not been able to, let's say, master the sales process somehow, because it's also for us like a discovery journey. We also don't know, or we didn't know exactly how to do it, but we've been working on that in the background quite extensively. And I think now we have a compelling case with customers to sell SAF or sell. I mean, customers, if you are making a commitment in terms of CO2 emission and you commit to science-based targets, you need to do something. And transportation is actually a big chunk of your CO2 emissions. So yeah, this is where we need to help each other. So it's not an easy thing, but we will get there.
And I actually also fully believe in the SBTi targets, because it really means that you reduce CO2 emissions in your sector, so not somewhere with some more or less clear projects, but within the sector, so fully committed to that. And we are actually very proud to now have our SBTi target set, so it's very serious. But then the second step is still, of course, you think, hey, look for those partners, the shippers that have also signed up for SBTi targets. They should be the natural partners in that. And then you see that many of them first completely focus on scope 1 and 2. And so then air freight is not in scope for the first thoughts. And then I agree also with you, there's so much education needed. Yeah, so we see it with our sales force, we see it with the counterparts on the forwarder and shipper side, and then it's a huge effort because you kind of need to talk to so many people until you sell for the first time. So we're very, very grateful to have DB Schenker as partner for our CO2 neutral flights. So that was a big effort from them, from us getting it launched. Yeah. And we hope, of course, for many more to follow. And well, we've got some in the pipeline, some announced, but it's tough and it's not a quick fix.
True, but I think we had discussed it before. What makes me believe that the shippers, the customers will eventually get there is they have continued shipping air freight at 3, 4, 5 times the prices of pre-COVID in the last 2 years. If we get back to a kind of bit more normal level, but then at SAF on top, there should be a reason why we believe there will still be air freight shipped.
Yeah, so Ludwig, where I was saying that we did not master yet the sales process, where we went wrong is we said, oh, dear Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, would you like to invest in SAF? Then they would say yes. Okay, so if you want to reduce 100%, it will cost you 4 times more. And then, of course, the customer says, yeah, okay, that's nice, but it's too much. But we need to just make sure that we do it in steps that are manageable. It's not that all companies have to reduce with 100% in 1 year.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do steps 10% and then 20%, and then actually you add maybe 5% or maybe 10% to the price, which is, if you want to become sustainable, doable, right? I mean, if you're serious. If you're just talking and you're not serious, you don't care. But if you want to do something, you need to pay for it. But do it in little steps.
Absolutely. In order to bring us a bit kind of to a close, and we started off this panel also a bit to address here the entire room, which is the representation of the entire air cargo industry, every step, every stakeholder, to also a bit bust the myth that kind of either integrators or kind of a new breed of market entrants or the leaders in classical air cargo might kind of create a new industry structure, which kind of, at least from my perspective, that might not be the case, but maybe you want to kind of all address in a bit of a kind of final word, how kind of you kind of see the industry going on, and also all the stakeholders a necessary piece in kind of getting to where we want to be, serving customers reliably and sustainably. Don't know who wants to start.
Well, so I think from a customer's perspective, we need to deliver integrated services. And they don't call it integrated service, they call it reliability, they call it good service, they call it fast. Yeah, so all these things we need to deliver, and that means if you are on the classical air freight and forwarding path, that you need to integrate much more, that you need to invest in good data, into good systems connections, into forecasting what will happen, and of course also in very good IREX solutions. And I think that's what our customers require, and what we should all strive to deliver.
Yes, I would tend to agree with that. The world has become much more complex, and so we need solutions. So we're going to be driven by the needs of our customers. And those customers, that's why the frontiers are shifting. That's why we are seeing, let's say, evolution of business model. Because at the end of the day, the solutions are more complex, and they require, in fact, more people to work together. So the freight forwarder is still the central piece, but there's going to be more, let's say, integration between the different players in order to deliver the right solution to the customer. And I think there's not one size fits all, but we need to be driven by the needs of the customer, and that's what is essential.
Yeah, so I echo that. So it is no, of course, it starts with what the customer wants, and you need to deliver that as best as you can. I think the world is getting more dynamic, more flexible. So the customers are getting more demanding because they need on-the-spot solutions. Yeah, of course, they have also structured good flows and supply chains. But there's so much dynamics going on that they need also flexible solutions. So if one thing isn't working, then in one day they need to shift to some other solution. So I think the speed and the flexibility is something that we all should be taking care of with our customers. But then of course in a reliable and consistent way. But I think more or less we're saying the same things using different words.
And
Great.
And to me, I think just maybe a closing remark, it remains a people business. And even though we're talking about assets, we're talking about software and solutions like that. In fact, it remains very much a people business. And at the end of the day, the human intervention will remain essential to deliver the right service and the right solution. So that's the good news, I think, for all of us.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much. You've been a great panel, and I'm sure that kind of we will stick around here for a few minutes, that a lot of you might kind of hunt my panelists for some more answers individually. But it was a pleasure talking to you, and thanks for providing your perspective.
And if you want to invest in SAF with us, I'm there.
Or here.
Or there. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.